Hey, my name is Madeline Butini and this is my podcast 1-800-MAD-BUTT. I am an Australian visual artist who values and highlights creativity, individuality and positivity. If you like this episode, subscribe, leave a review or follow me on Instagram at 1-800-MAD-BUTT. Links are below.
Hey.
Hey, babe, how are you?
Oh, it's been a ride the last 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, it's been a bit random. My situationship pa broke up with me. So I'm just like,
Oh,
like it's fine. It's just really random. Anyway.
welcome. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Fuck that. Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
I mean, it's a fun journey.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, whatever. In the grand scheme of things, it's fine.
Yeah, no, if we're going to share relationship stuff, right, I just got a text before I went into this chat from this guy that I've been talking to. I haven't met him, by the way, but a random text from this guy saying, I hard.
Really?
Was,
That's a lot.
And I was like, oh, I wish I could play this game right now, but I'm about to have an interview with someone. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I see that I see that you've been getting a lot of traction online and you got your account back.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm happy I got my account back. That was actually kind of stressful. I guess this is an interesting point. I didn't really realize how much I relied on Instagram as like a point of contact for everybody until I lost it. And I really hate the fact that social media dictates how I'm interacting with the creative community so much that I don't really care necessarily about like following or like count or engagement too much. It's more of like a more creative LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So then when I lost my account, I guess all of those connections that I had made, I don't remember everybody off the top of my head. And I'm sure you don't either. Like the average person can't remember that many people. And I lost those connections that I'd made with galleries, that I'd made with other curators and other artists. It was a bit stressful from that sort of part. So yeah. I've taken 2023 as the I nearly said 2022. It makes more sense like that. I've taken 2023 to sort of make sure I'm diversifying on different platforms. I've got my little TikTok going.
I love TikTok.
So I haven't been really doing
the one thing that I've learned about this, because I just did like a whole media plan for like 2023. I'm going to send you a link to how you can collect data and stuff because I just released it today. But
yeah, sick.
What I learned about TikTok is that TikTok followers aren't very loyal. It's not like Instagram where you can have like sales and things like that. But if you're just showing things on there and just sharing your experience, then it's like a great platform.
Yeah, that's sick. I don't think I necessarily like sell a bunch of shit to people. I've sort of devised a way only recently in the past couple of weeks to make content. I didn't really understand what it meant to make consumable content until I made consumable content, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Personally, when I go on TikTok, I want to just scroll through mindlessly and not like necessarily be bombarded with information. I made like a video of like, I shot a rave in December, titled Rave Fashion in Brisbane. And it was, instead of me being like, I took these photos of these people at a rave that I shot, thank you so much for having me type of vibe, presented them with like photographs on a slideshow. These are photos of rave fashion in Brisbane, and people consumed that more than as like if I was to be like, oh, you know, I'm a photographer, like my shit type of vibe. Do you know what I mean? It's really key to sort of make sure that you're doing both, maintaining the level of professionalism, slightly tweaking it in a consumable way, because it is still social media. People want to enjoy, you know, what they're consuming.
I totally get that. And I have a few friends who are also photographers, and sometimes they'll just post a random photo that they took at a gig or something, and it's just the same old shot of like a singer screaming into a microphone. And, you know, so it's cool that you're diversifying your content that way and, you know, showing different things.
It's annoying though that you have to do that, because it should just, I miss like old school Instagram. I say that like I'm really old, but where you could build a platform just by posting a photo.
I mean, yeah, with my last conversation with Bonnie, we were talking about MySpace. Did you have MySpace?
No.
Yeah, that's okay, babe. That's totally cool.
Like, I think I had it like after it died, and I was like, ooh, this is so edgy, and then that was it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were talking about, like, I was saying how I was like a little emo kid and I used to have like love hearts coming from my page and like My Chemical Romance playing and whatever. But
I just bought a ticket to My Chemical Romance.
love this. I love this. I want you to kind of explain your journey into the Brisbane creative art space and how that happened. Now it's kind of changed a little bit. When I first started in the Brisbane art space, it was very, very small and contained. And now it's kind of like exploding a little bit bigger and growing every single day. And it's being more inclusive.
Yeah, I think as sort of more and more things pop up, it's easier emerging artists to get more opportunities. It was actually really random and completely like some tarot card shit, like horoscope shit for sure. But I was in Byron Bay and I randomly came back down because I was like moving out of home for the first time after high school. And I met this lady named Ashley who told me about this art show called Bad Olive that was happening in a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then a little bit down the line, like another person that I met was like, oh, I'm showing in this art show about Olive. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go. There's like these two people that I think are really cool. Like, what is this? What is this all about? So I was at Byron and I was umming and ahhing about like whether I was going to go. It was like a $30 ticket. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I have $30 to spend to go to an art show I'm not really sure about. I ended up going and it was the best decision I ever made. It was the Battle of Bad Bitches event in West End. I think it was like an all-female lineup. It was absolutely like stellar. And I met so many wonderful people there. I made sure to like introduce myself to as many people as my socially awkward self could do. And I also made sure to meet Abby, Abby and Wellborn run Battle of, used to, if they still do. And I made sure to meet Abby. And I was like, I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I really like this. And she's really lovely. Anyway, a bit of time passed and I sort of started the Instagram scroll where I was going through different accounts and being like, oh, this person's really sick, and then finding new accounts from that account and sort of like, I guess, online networking. I sent a few messages to a few artists being like, oh my God, your work is so great. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And try to like engage myself in the community, even though it was online. And then I was doing my own thing for a bit. And then I got a phone call from Abby being like, you're in the next Bad Olive. And I was like, stop it. I was at Bunnings buying a plant at the time. And I think I did a little happy dance.
Yay!
It was great. It was like I don't know, it was a really important part in my life though. And I've talked about it a lot to like friends and stuff. She took like a chance, I guess, on me putting my art. She didn't really know me at all. I hadn't shown before. She took a chance on me like putting my art in an exhibition. During that exhibition, I made it my mission to meet every single person there and network as hard as I could. And then from there, it's just sort of like I sort of found like a circle and it's gradually gotten bigger and I've sort of met more people through people.
Yeah.
I always, whenever I go to an event, I always have a really specific, I don't know, I'm not really the biggest socially outward person. So I like think of it like I'm wearing a hat. I'm going to this art show, I put the social networking conversation hat on. And then I sort of, while enjoying myself, have the thing in the back of my mind being like, it would be great to meet some more people I've never met before while I'm here.
So what are your like networking, I guess, steps then? Because I find whenever I go to an art show, everyone's just kind of talking to themselves or they're talking to people that they know. How do you put yourself out there?
Well, yeah, it was terrifying. It can be cliquey in some areas, but Brisbane is pretty good, I will say, in terms of like being welcoming and not as competitive, sabotaging each other for, a spot on the podium or whatever. People will, I don't know, I sort of introduced myself to some people, like stuck to them like a little fly for a little while. And then they introduced me to other people. So I guess the way to sort of do it is I always would talk to the artists in the art show, be like, hey, I really like your work. Start a conversation about their work if you don't know how to sort of start a conversation. And then from there, it sort of expands. Slip in there, hey, I'm also an artist. Oh, can I get your Instagram? And then it sort of goes from there. And then, over time, you see them at another show and you're like, oh, hey, sort of build those. They're not friendships necessarily, like more like acquaintances.
You build rapport with them.
Yeah, it can turn into a bunch of different things. I don't know, I use like people's art to start the conversation and then it sort of goes from there.
I love that. I'm going to try that next time. I am autistic. I have ADHD. And so being neurodivergent, I typically, even though I'm very like outgoing one-on-one with people, when I'm in a large crowd, I get very overwhelmed and I get very
I
like,
really feel that.
yeah, so I'm going to try that next time I go to an art exhibition. I'm going to try and find an artist, talk to them about their work. Because sometimes, though, I can think it's quite hard as an artist when you're exhibiting, trying to talk to other people because other people want to talk to you. So I'm so surprised I've never made that correlation and been like, maybe I should try that. But yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
A lot of people that I have talked to that have asked me about, how to network and stuff are like, I'm really anxious. So taking the conversation away from friendship or like you're focusing it more on like the art itself. So it's like an item you can, reattach to if you're feeling anxious and focus on that rather than the interaction with the person. You can make comments on the object, and I don't know, it lessened my anxiety when I was first getting into it. Makes there's a point of conversation, it can't go dry because you're talking about something specific.
Yeah, it's a good icebreaker.
Yeah, it's like, it's really helpful.
Takes a bit of pressure off yourself too, because then you're kind of putting the spotlight on them. Yeah, in some way.
Yeah.
And so what kind of mediums do you use? I know you do photography, and then you also have a magazine or a zine. What are we calling them these days? Zines or magazines?
It's like, I don't know, it's a bit of both. I like to call it a magazine because it's more of like a book. The paper's really thick. It's like 90 pages long.
Wow.
When I think of, when I think of zines, I'm like A5 hand stapled or like bound without a spine. I think that's how I sort of differentiate both of them. But it can be a zine, magazine, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
Yeah, so photography has been more of a recent thing for me, actually. I come from like doing aerosol and oil paintings. Prior to that, like illustration stuff, which I did sporadically through high school. Started taking it seriously towards the more like end of 2020. Started doing like markets, and I'd sell like prints and things like that, and people had a really positive response to that. And then I sort of moved away from doing that May of 2021 because I wanted to focus on other things. I still enjoy painting and things like that. I love curating shows and I love the business side of it. So I guess you'd call that my main medium. With the photography, it comes into like journalism, not necessarily stories, but documenting things. So the photography sort of coincides with my love making books and documenting and collecting information and displaying it all in one place.
Yeah, nice.
I've always done that. I collect like tickets, and just my walls like are always full of just random bits and pieces of like posters and stuff that I've picked up off the side of the road and stuff. And I've just always had that like habit of collecting things. So I think it's really informed my practice, collecting things, refining things, displaying things, making new meanings from those things.
Nice. And how many times a year does No Order come out? Sorry.
look, it's one of those things. It's officially meant to be bi-yearly. It takes me like a minimum of 6 months to do an issue because of like how much work is involved in it. I don't think a lot of people fully realize how much like time things take,
especially 90 pages. That's crazy.
It's a lot. It's correlating artists that takes the longest. Getting people to actually stick to deadlines, it's very difficult. It's like herding cats. So a lot of people, I guess, they get a bit shitty with me sometimes where I have to put my foot down in certain situations or make contracts and things like that because there has to be some level of
order,
time limit. Yeah, some level of order. But yeah, so like I had issue 1 in October 2021. Issue 1 came out. Issue 2 came out November 2022. I had to take some time off because I had surgery and some chronic health issues. But I think, for me, it sort of works better once a year. So I think I'm going to shift into that more. I do study full time as well. So it's easier for me to make sure that I'm taking enough time to spread myself evenly and not too thin, which I have a habit of doing.
Yeah. What are you studying?
I study art. It's a really boring answer. I was studying like chemistry at QCA. It's such a cliche. I love it. Oh, that rhymes.
No, that's all right. My dad studied at QCA. I love it.
Oh no, yeah, it's great. I'm not going to really use this specific degree all too much though. I want to do my master's in art history, but they don't allow any sort of specialties in that. So I have to do painting or photography or sculpture. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I'll figure it out. But yeah. So I mean,
I don't have a degree in anything. So I mean, good for you.
Thank you. It's I really did enjoy doing a science degree. But it just didn't fit with my brain, I guess. I'm not a very
Yeah,
linear person. I don't know if you
I
can
get
relate,
that.
but
I get that.
I do things in like bursts, like clumps, right? And then nothing for like a few weeks, and it doesn't really fit with that sort of degree. So yeah,
That's all right. That's
anyway.
okay. So tell me a little bit about Riot Collective.
Yeah, so Riot, the way it was birthed, right? It was a whole thing. I threw the magazine event in the middle of October, and then I got a phone call from a friend of mine called Victoria. She's lovely. I did an exhibition up in Ipswich, a part of Anywhere Festival that she ran, I think in May, I want to say May of 2021. And we haven't talked like in between this time. And she's like, hey, I'm doing this, like I'm helping manage this festival. Do you want to do a show for it? Through like No Water. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like, what's the turnaround? 3 weeks. I was like, Jesus. So the event had to be in 3 weeks, right? And I was going through like a bit of a hard time. So it was good for me to like really challenge myself. I didn't want to take away from the really specific brand identity that I spent building with No Water, which I have since like altered, but things alter and grow. So I decided to start Riot. There's like no space that I found exclusively for non-binary people, women, or gender non-conforming people. There's always like men somewhere in there involved somehow, which is fine. I just wanted to make a space specifically and exclusively for that group of people, that
Yeah,
because
no.
I didn't find
Yeah.
that's just not
Yeah.
around.
And that's such a point. Like, no, honestly, sorry to cut you off, but that's such a point because
No,
normally it's
you're
like you
right.
have all female shows or you have all male shows or you have a mixture and then that's it.
Or like you'll
Or
have
a
like an
gay
event.
show or whatever, but it's like,
Yeah, it's never really for like non-binary people specifically. There's not a large representation of that group in Brisbane too much at the moment. But like even, all female like events, it's like, a female-led band, but there's still men involved. They're still getting some level of like showcase. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities that they already get because,
yeah.
there's some sort of level of the patriarchy, right? People don't intend it to be like that. It just happens. It happens to be like that. So I wanted to really make sure that I had a space specifically around gender, to create equal opportunities for groups that, don't get opportunities as easy. So yeah, so I threw, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. I
It's all good.
threw, I had a residency at a place at the time, Mayne Line over in Albion. Which was really, really great. So I ended up it was a gallery studio situation. I ended up throwing the show there. I hit up 15 artists that I had met through networking,
Nice.
key there. Got a sponsorship from Young Henry's,
You?
because I also got that networking. And I threw the exhibition, and it was really great to have those people involved in the very beginning, all of the Riot shows that I've done. And yeah, that's sort of where it started, and then it sort of really picked up from there. I put No Water aside for a little bit and focused on building that a bit more throughout 2022. So yeah, it's I've thrown a bunch of different things. I threw a rave at one point. I was
Oh my God.
teasing the idea of doing a second one, but
Can
it
you
was so
please make
traumatic.
sure you let me know when the second rave is? Because I haven't been to a rave in like 6 years.
It was so traumatic. I don't think I can bring it's like childbirth, right? This is the easiest analogy that I can find. It's like you give birth, there's that hormone that like releases that makes you kind of forget the pain, and then you want to do it again, have another child. It's kind of like that. Seriously, it's like I gave birth to a rave. The rave happened. It was so traumatic. Period
Why?
elapsed. I
Why?
wanted for
What
another
was
rave.
traumatic about it? What happened?
Me at the ripe old age of 19, and I thought, what could possibly go wrong by spending, 5 figures on an event, managing 300, really drunk, intoxicated people by yourself with, one security guard and a door person. What could go wrong?
Okay, now I know where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I was really thankful that I had also met some other people through networking. I'm gonna keep doing it. Who I had like this like wellness section, of these. They're called the Conscious Nest, and they're like harm reduction. They're a harm reduction team, and they're really positive, really lovely people. So they helped look after people throughout the night. They'd bring them. We had a little couch set up with some tapestries
Oh,
and stuff. So they saved me. But I don't
So it
know.
wasn't a total disaster then. You had like a chill out zone for people to go if they were too like
Oh, for
fucked up.
sure. Yeah, the honestly, the people were fine. It was probably the best crowd I've ever seen at a rave because I've been to a few. Everybody was really respectful of each other. It was a really quite a safe space, I think 99% of the time. And I made sure that, that was the priority. Again, like sticking with the theme of Riot, the lineup was all, femme, non-binary and gender non-conforming people, but with the really large emphasis on you will be immediately removed if you don't respect the safe space policy. It was a lot of people's like first time going to an event like this. They are pretty notorious for being like,
Trash
ungoverned.
baggy.
Yeah, just like you can get away with doing whatever you want to do. And
Yeah.
it's just not the culture that I sort of wanted to bring with that Riot brand or just ever, but have with Riot because, yeah, I don't know. I always felt uncomfortable or semi-uncomfortable in some of those spaces. So I wanted to create my own.
I love that you're a leader in the space. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's so incredible because like you're only 20 and like you're doing all this fantastic stuff. Like when I was 20, I was still like popping pills and like being a total dickhead. I wasn't even making art yet. Like you're gonna go so far.
Thank
Like
you. Well, I feel like
honestly.
everybody has a different journey, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't also, I would just like to address, I wouldn't say as like a leader in creating a safe space in the rave environment or community. Like I'm very much what like an outcast. I'm not really in on it all too much. There's like Shandy and Femme who really created those spaces initially, who are phenomenal. Like, yeah, it's just really great. But yeah, I
Hey,
don't know.
don't knock yourself back. Like I think it's incredible that you've like set up this magazine, set up this collective while also studying, and I'm assuming that you're also working, you're organizing events. Like that's incredible. That's doing way more than what most other people are doing. Like honestly,
Thank
like
you.
you got to commend yourself a little bit. Yeah, you may not be like a total leader with throughout the broad art community, but within your little niche area you are, so that's incredible. Like totally.
Thanks.
I love that.
Thanks.
So, what kind of advice do you have for artists who are coming into the scene?
Great question. I honestly think like putting yourself out there, I know that's a really cliche thing to say, and a lot of people hear it and they're like, oh yeah, and it needs to click, I think, sometimes first, for them to really realize what it actually means. Putting yourself out there, don't be afraid to take risks with your artwork. I guess networking is again like the key part to all of it. You can be an amazing artist, but if nobody knows about your art, you're not going to reach a larger audience, or you're not going to be able to, I don't want to say make like not be able to make a career, but it's going to be difficult, work as an artist if you're not maintaining a strong network. Other artists, galleries, just people, collectors, curators, bits and pieces like that. It's really, really key. So start building that network. I don't know, go to an art show, right? And make a point to meet one artist, discuss art for a little bit, and that's it. And just taking little baby steps, putting yourself out of your comfort zone if you're an anxious person, just being extra considerate of, okay, I'm in this space, I'm at an exhibition. I also want to be, exhibiting my work or showing my work or being in the scene. I'm just going to take 5 minutes out of my time to make a connection and then enjoy the rest of my night. Just taking little baby steps, and starting with that, I think, is the best way. Have an Instagram always. I always suggest that to people. People need to know where to find you at some point. There's like what platform or where's like a landing page for you? Like where can they find you again? It's like people don't use phone numbers really. That's not a thing. So it's like, where's your visual portfolio? Websites aren't really a thing too much. Instagram's probably the easiest one. Instagram, TikTok's good. TikTok's a little bit different. Instagram's just a really great landing portfolio. It doesn't matter how many followers you are. It's just a place you can direct people to go. It's like a business card online. So yeah, having somewhere where people can find you, and then make sure you're interacting and conversing with people about, you know, art, and involving yourself actively into the community through like social interactions, going to shows, asking artists questions, putting your hand up for opportunities. That's the other thing. Keep an eye out for call outs on Instagram. A lot of like for Riot, for example, we will post out like, you know, submissions for our next show, submit some of your work, any sort of underground publications. Just make sure to like try all of the opportunities that sort of come without judging yourself too hard. Because you never know sort of what can come of something. Even if you don't make it into an exhibition, it might be something makes of it like in 6 months' time, where that same curator will hit you up for something then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah, just throw yourself, if you're going to do it, you know, just do it. Put yourself you have to insert yourself into the scene the easiest way.
Yeah. Don't half-ass it, just do it. I love that. Yeah, build a presence online, get your name out there, meet people, don't be a dick. Love that.
Yeah. Don't go in there being like, I know everything, because no one's going to want to hear it. Just learn and grow with people. Don't be disrespectful. Have your own opinions though. Don't be a pushover, but, you know, do everything respectfully and be conscious of the space you're taking up in certain spaces.
Yeah, totally.
It's just important. But yeah, don't half-ass it. I see so many artists that are so great. Just be like, oh yeah, maybe I'll submit. They never submit to stuff, or oh yeah, maybe I was thinking about sharing this, and they just never do it. This is like, you've just got to do it. That's the key part. Because if you don't do it, no one's ever going to see it.
Yeah, totally. No, I get that. So I want to talk about your curating style.
I don't know, the way that I sort of curate things, I guess, it's quite different to when I initially did it. I guess I succumbed to a lot of pressure from my friends being like, oh, surely you'll put me in this. Oh, you'll put me in this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I will. And then I sort of ended up showing a lot of people's work, which I think their work is great. I just felt pressured to show it, if that makes sense. So I think from about midway through last year, I sort of put a bit of a stop to that insecurity, or just practice in general.
Or do you think that maybe you set up some boundaries with people?
Yeah, that's I guess what it is. Yeah. I became a little bit more stable in, you know, believing in what I was doing was correct and not offending people by not including them in certain things, I think. Yeah, it was fine. But yeah, so curating wise, I really like unique and obscure things that I have never seen before. I really hate going to an art show. Well, I don't hate it, but I don't enjoy going to an art show where there's art on display that I continually see a million times. Or the same artists on repeat, saying like sharing the same artworks that I've seen at art shows like 4 or 5 times now. So yeah, that's what I really love about like submissions. So I guess, yeah, the process that I take, I generally have like a theme in mind or a concept for a show. I generally have like 2 to 3 or to 4 artists that I know who I want to work with, and who's, you know, who I'm curating the show around with that sort of their style of work in mind. And then I put out a submissions process, which allows me to see artists who I have never seen before. It allows me to sort of open my world up to a bunch of people who I would never have found otherwise. For example, like this next Riot show, somebody submitted some work and they'd made like a tiara, like a crown out of their own hair. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I never would have found that otherwise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unique. It's really unique.
What color hair was that? Was it like blonde or brunette?
It's like brown, but they've got like these little wire bits with like red jewels and stuff. It's really interesting. But yeah, just like it excites me to see work I haven't seen before, and it allows me to sort of create shows that I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah.
There's work that I'm obviously always drawn to. I really like abstract installation work, performance art that is unique as well. I love, like I've worked with Micah Rosticelli a few times with performance art, and it's been, you know, amazing every single time. I think they just finished their masters in art, I think performance art or something like that. Very, very talented, very, very talented. But you know, made this contraption, I think, for fluidity, where there were 2 mannequins and they were pulling on little pulleys, and as Micah painted themselves, one pulley would go up that was like more masculine, and the other pulley that was more feminine would go down, and it was this like, you know, really interactive thing. And then people could write a note and leave a mark on his body with paint. And it was just this really like interactive. I guess the better way to put it is I love interactive artwork. It makes it more immersive and it gives it to be like more of an experience. So when I'm curating, I'm really considerate of all of the different elements. Have I got, a sufficient amount of performance art or immersive sort of art that's captivating an audience? Have I got, some three-dimensional work? Is there variation in mediums? So it's not just the traditional canvas on a wall sort of exhibition. I do think they're great. They're just not really my style. I'd rather it be more like, you walking into a different sort of, not a different world because it's not to that extent, but you're walking into a space where there's lots of things going on. I love playing with elements of sound as well. So I think I've mainly did that with There's More Reflections, which was a Riot show I threw in August last year. But I had a DJ, a sound artist, make a soundscape and play it live for 4 hours at that show. And I got a lot of positive feedback, being like it really anchored the whole thing and made it like you were stepping into that space. The sound sort of made that space universal. And it wasn't too overpowering. It was just enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, just considering a bunch of different interactive elements whenever I'm curating a show is the way that I sort of do things. I really love obscure things. I like things that are provocative, things that, evoke a certain emotion in me, obviously while still being respectful and conscious of, I'm not going to show something that's racist, right?
Yeah.
But, things that start conversation, I'm really, really interested in, a positive conversation.
Yeah, I get that.
That's sort of
it's
what
like
I like
me
to
with
do.
this podcast. What would you say is the best kind of communication that an artist can put forward to a curator? So say I'm an artist, I haven't really been in any shows. How can I come to a curator and network?
Yeah, I think I really love organization when people have their shit together, just personally. And I think a lot of other people are on the same page. If you're curating a show and, you're wanting to work with these artists, they need to have some level of organization. Otherwise, no matter how good their art is, it's not viable. It drives you absolutely up the wall and it becomes more of an effort than what's, reasonable to put out. So I guess when you approach a curator, it's really good to have a key point or key points of what you're trying to get across. So I guess there's different ways. If you're just chatting to somebody at an art show, being like, oh, you're a curator, I'm an artist, I'd really like to get involved working with you. Share your Instagram, make sure you have a neat and tidy or semi-succinct portfolio or an Instagram page that's about your art. I don't want to follow an account that's personal. I don't want to follow an account that shows me about your life. That's not what I'm interested in. A lot of people will often follow me and they'll have their art and their personal life on there as a mix. It's not really something that I want to engage in too much because I don't really want to see your personal life. This is like a business account for me. So yeah, just having a space that's purely your art that you can take to somebody to show. I think that's really key, having a nice laid out succinct portfolio. For those that have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, there's actually a free website service. It's called Portfolio, where you can build a portfolio for free. You can make up to 5. I do that for my own websites. It's very cheap. I just pay for the domain per year. It's $27 a year to run it.
Wow, amazing.
But it's so good. But it's a place where people can go to see your stuff, and it's professional and it's succinct. So you know what I mean? If you're going to a curator with a proposal, being like, I'd really love to do XYZ with you. Is this something you'd be interested in doing? If I was put in that situation, I would really like it if this person has, thought through what they're proposing. They've got some sort of general idea and polished idea that they're putting towards. Do you know what I mean? I don't really. Yeah. I'd find it very difficult to work with somebody that's not entirely sure on what they're actually doing or what they want to communicate, because, well, I don't know. I'm not the artist that wants to communicate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess the art of curating is combining different artists to communicate an overall meaning, but I can't do that for your work individually. So yeah, I guess knowing what you want to do, having a really succinct way of communicating that. So like if you're sending an email, break it down. Here's a short proposal. Here's what I want to do. Here's the timelines and stuff. Here's what's suitable. This is the dimensions. Just make sure you have all of the information before going to somebody about it. It makes everybody's life easier, and they're more likely to take you on or indulge you in your project. The more organized you are, the more work you're going to get, or the more collaboration or attention you're going to get from people. I'll work with somebody that's more organized over somebody else that isn't any day of the week.
Yeah, it sounds like
it's worth it so much. Well, I've had my fair share of experiences.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. I mean, look, yeah, no, totally. And I think some people seem to just generalize and be like, oh, you know, you're just an artist, you're just like this stereotypical person who can just be like easy breezy. And it's like, no, initially you are your own business manager, you're your own promoter, you have to make sure you're your own IT support, you're your own social media planner. Like, you have to have your shit organized. If you don't have your shit organized, no one's going to work with you. You're not building any trust or reputation with anybody. I mean, when I decided to go into art, and I hadn't been into art at all, I just built a website, posted on social media, and then shit just grew, you know, like
exactly.
It was always very succinct. And I was luckily had worked in like office jobs, so I knew how to do a few things and whatever. Yeah, I have in the past worked with clients who send me like 40,000 emails in different threads and will just send me random things, and I'm just like,
I hate that so much. Or like, well, my issue is I have 6 different Instagram accounts, right? So people, they'll message me about one show on a different Instagram account, and I'm like, I can never find what I need. Yeah. So I guess having some level of professionalism and organization to your practice is so, so, so vital. Otherwise, no one's going to want to work with you, no matter how good your art is. No one will sacrifice giving themselves a major headache just because your art is good. No one's going to do that. I can tell you right now. I certainly, I've done it, and I will never do it again. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, as a curator, I guess, you know, you have to set boundaries. And one of those boundaries for me is like, if you're late, you're not in the exhibition. I have like a late fee in a lot of my contracts, or like a pulling out fee. If you pull out after a certain date, you know, X amount of weeks close to an exhibition, I will invoice you for a fee, because, you know, I spend all of my time promoting, you know, making, you know, exhibition catalogs and little like introductory Instagram posts and shit. Like, that takes my time, you know, like that's, yeah. So just, as long as you've got everything neat and tidy, like a little proposal box, like in a box, you're gonna be fine and more likely to get work. That's the easiest way I can put it.
So what galleries do you like in Brisbane?
I really like Outer Space. I think they're really cool. Galleries, Brisbane is a little bit tricky. I guess more commercial style galleries. I love Outer Space, and I like well, not that Outer Space is commercial, but we'll group it all into one, right?
Yeah.
Government funded and commercial galleries. Studio Gallery Group is another great one. They just opened up a Fortitude Valley location. One of my good artist friends is signed to them at the moment, and it's actually run by a woman named Kerry, and she's just phenomenal. I really aspire to be her in my own way, but like, she's brutal, but God, she's good at what she does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Far out. And then I really like Goma. I think Goma, like the exhibitions that they put on, not their general always on exhibitions, they're fine. I really like, you know, things like air and things that are interactive. Queensland Art Gallery actually has something on at the moment where one of my uni lecturers is in.
I don't mind a bit of Quag.
Yeah, Quag is great. I go to Quag all the time. I just love the aircon.
Yeah, same. No, so they had it, one time when I went there, when they were doing the merging of Goma and Quag into one, the marketing team, I don't know how they didn't get this information out or why I didn't see this, but they actually had a Picasso drawing exhibition on at Quag. And I was like, yeah, and there was nobody there, and it was free.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just
are you fucking for real?
Free? Yeah, it was so bizarre. Wow. And so I always put it down to that. I'm like, they just hadn't merged the two together, and there must have been some kind of like department issue going on or something. But
for sure.
Yeah, I don't think Quag gets enough like of a good rap, like, to be honest.
I will say this though, I've been to a lot of galleries. I went over to Paris and looked at a lot of galleries over there. Goma's like, and I've talked to a lot of other artists about this, the way that Goma installs their work is world class. in my opinion. They really have such a great installation and curatorial team about things and how they're placed within that space. The space is beautiful. Everything has enough space to breathe. I hate when things are too close together. Everything's installed extremely well. That's why I love Goma. So yeah, they've got those, elements of interaction, also two-dimensional art, three-dimensional art. I like all of those elements together. I think that's why I like that space. See, exhibitions and sit and really digest them and get a lot of inspiration, which can, push me into exploring different areas. But yeah, they've always got really unique work on, and both of those galleries, Queensland Art Gallery and Goma, they're never boring. I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, no, totally. And I also really like their kids section because I have
same.
ADHD and I love doing that shit.
I remember when I was like 11, right? I used to go to the gallery with my friend. They had that I can't remember her name. The one with the big dots in the room where you could go and put dots in a huge white room.
Kasama.
Oh, with galleries though, the other thing is like I don't necessarily I can't throw a show in Goma. That's not how that works. So there's a lot of venues that I work with. I am actually having a bit of trouble at the moment though, finding appropriate spaces for shows. There's some really small great spaces that I can always rely on, but it's more of like a 4 to 5 artist show. Anything like it's just becoming really inaccessible for.
Why is that, do you think? Is there just a lack of
cost
venues?
of living? It's both. The cost of living crisis, well, it drives everybody's rent up, etc. Yeah, well, there's no funding. There's barely any funding in the arts in Brisbane that's not directly linked to like large outdoor installation pieces. Like that's the easiest way I can put it. They love that stuff. As soon as it like doesn't directly benefit them or it makes it into their like brochure,
yeah,
they won't fund it, right? So like galleries often get the short end of the stick. But yeah, just it's either really really expensive or they take 30%, 8% of tickets and cost like $2,000 type of thing. The space is too small or it's not appropriate lighting. Like it's very hard to find what I need, I guess, for a space, because I'm not made of money. I don't get funding from anything. Everything comes out of my own pocket, which I'm pretty transparent about with a lot of the artists and the people that I work with. Not that it's really it's not like their business, but I like to be transparent in ways that is educational so that people don't think I'm living some extravagant life or things aren't realistic or aren't unrealistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, transparency is key, especially with communication.
Yeah, well, if I'm working with these sorts of groups of people that often get exploited, I think it's really important that they're aware of where funding comes from and where it goes and sort of what happens with that. So if I'm making enough of a show that people are being paid, I've made, I've thrown events where I've made $20, and I bought some chicken nuggets from Macca's on the way home. And I was like, true. And then I kept going on with my life. So like in those instances where I can't afford to pay people, it is what it is. I've actually made the shift. I used to, for the first few shows, I had some volunteers help me with bits and pieces, but now I've made it everybody gets at least minimum wage.
I think it's incredible that you pay your staff well and you're giving opportunities.
I think it's really important to maintain diversity and inclusivity in everything. It shouldn't be like tokenistic or anything like that. It should be just how it is. And so I try to whenever I curate a show, I try to just look at the art, but I'm also conscious of making the lineup of artists diverse. So yeah, I think like to sum it up, because there was a lot there, separating work life from personal life is really important, and making sure those boundaries are maintained the whole time is really really key. So then things don't get messy and everybody's happy at the end of the day. It's good. No one gets disappointed because the expectations were clear in the first place. Make sure to look after your health. I think the first Riot show that I did, I got heat stroke.
Whoa.
from installing the show, because I was so stressed and I couldn't even be there for the first like hour and a half because I had to go to the lie under a shower to like cool off. It was pretty bad. Yeah. I was really sick, but just so like making sure to like pace yourself, even if you're not like curating stuff, just like if you're in an exhibition, you say you've got 3 exhibitions in a week, don't sort of like push yourself too hard, and make sure you're getting enough sleep, enough things, like enough to eat, just like putting your health first as like a priority, but also planning, in advance to things like that, so that, the load is evenly distributed, so that you're not, overloaded in one sort of like couple of days. It's like spread out over a couple of weeks. And then I guess the other thing is just like not giving yourself too much of a hard time if something doesn't go how you want it to. Like it's not the end of the world. It is what it is, and you'll gain more from that than you realize at the time. I've experienced, like the rave I threw, it traumatized me like you would not believe. I haven't let it go yet. I'll let it go in like 5 years. That's my time. I'm gonna like I gotta put an expiration date on it, right? The things that I learned from doing that event far outweighed, I want to say far outweighed the pain, right? Because you're put in a position where you have to make difficult choices and you have to push through. Things that I sort of gained from being in that position, have helped, my career, if that makes sense. Yeah, if it's not now, it'll be in 6 months or 5 years that you'll see the ripple effect.
And my last question to you is, what have you got going on this year?
Oh, so much, actually. It's going to be, I just found out some really exciting news this morning. And it seems like it's such a fangirl move on my part. Like, it's so ridiculous. There's this artist. There are like 5 or 6 artists in Brisbane whose work I would purchase. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have a lot of money, but these people I would throw thousands at. My last dollar I would throw at these people. Anyway, one of them hit me up this morning about like doing some photography work for them. And it kind of like I had a full circle moment, because I was like, oh my goodness, I found this person, when I was 15. So what, 5 years ago? 5 years ago, I was introduced to this artist. I was like, oh my God, this work is so cool. He's such a cool dude. And then now 5 years later, I'm working with him and doing photography for his like work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I'm
awesome.
doing that, and hopefully it leads to some more stuff down the line. So yeah, just more photography stuff. I have a few raves coming up that I'm shooting. I actually work at a nightclub, which makes my life really easy because I can just talk to club promoters while I'm at work.
Nice.
And be like, yo, you have any photographer? I will do that for you. I'm doing a show for Riot in May. People don't actually know this yet, but I guess I can spill the tea. Brisbane Art Design Festival. I'm doing a collaboration with them for the next Riot show. I'm really excited because, well, yeah, it's a big sort of, it's not a big step, but it's a step in the, upper direction of where I'd like to take Riot. I don't want things to become too commercialized with everything that I do. I'm really conscious of that. But yeah, so I'm going to do a Brisbane Art Design collab thing with Riot Collective. I've been really lazy curating that at the moment. It's just taking so long. I had like 83 submissions. So
oh my God, that's
a
wild
lot to go through. Yeah, I'm just trying to, it's a lot. So yeah, that I want to do another issue of No Order. I've also got submissions up for that at the moment. I'm gonna try take a new angle with that one, I think, as well. I'm sort of just experimenting a lot with what I want to do with everything, but maintaining the same sort of brand identity. I think that's important. Yeah, I'll probably do another Riot show. So probably 4 events this year.
So you
I did one every 2. Well, I did 6 last year, and that kind of whipped me a bit.
Amazing. Well, those are all the questions I have for you.
Oh, great.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's okay.
If you liked this episode, you can share, rate on your listening app, or follow me on Instagram. This episode was produced, recorded, and edited in Mayne, Brisbane. 1-800-MAD-BUTT would like to pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you.